Hi everyone, my name is Mads, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video which is going to be my plans for reading for the rest of the year. It is the 1st of September when I'm filming this. I don't fully know when you'll see it, but hopefully soon. But we now have 4 months till the end of the year. I, like everyone, don't know how we got here, don't know how this happened. It's been a big year, lots has happened. It's been a particularly big and busy last couple of months. But for me, personally, the end of that is in sight. I am the person I've always been, so I am always busy. I do a lot of things, I have a lot of hobbies, I see friends a lot, so I'm always busy. But like most people, summer is the worst of it because it's lovely weather and everything's happening and everyone's out and about more. And we're going into the cozy months, we're going into a little bit more time to sit and read, hopefully. But like many people, I am really feeling this run towards the end of the year. And if I'm being honest, I started feeling it in June this year. I think in parts because I was starting a new job in July and a lot was changing and I knew I would have a lot less free time. And so I really have been feeling that all my life I have so much to get done before the year ends. But going into the final 4 months, I'm feeling that even more. Because of this, about a week ago, just before the end of August, I decided to go and look at my shelves and work out what are the books I really want to read before the end of the year. How do I want to structure my reading? What is my focus? Because I love mood reading. And as many of you will know, I have a TBR game called Dart Attack, which is my mechanism for narrowing down my entire TBR, but allowing mood reading within that. And that works really well, but I have felt a little bit in the last month or two that I'm struggling to work out what I want to read, what kind of genres. My reading's been all over the place. I've been starting and stopping and everything. So I thought, let's take stock. What do I want to get done before the end of the year? It is safe to say that the piles I have next to me, and yes, piles plural, are probably more books than I'm going to get to in the next 4 months. I've not been reading tons the last couple months. I think I've been doing like 8 to 10 books a month, but about 3 or 4 of those are normally manga, and there is 0 manga in these piles. But nonetheless, I thought it was a good moment to look at the goals I set, look at the books I've brought in, and really prioritize what I want to try and get to. Before I go through what all these books are, a couple prefaces. Am I going to read all of these books before the end of the year? It's unlikely. I very rarely manage things like that, but we're going to try. And number 2, are these going to be the only books I read until the end of the year? Again, unlikely. Books will come out, I will haul something new, I'll have a craving for something else random on my shelf. I've got these books in different categories, but this is just creating a list, and also I've literally reorganized my bookshelves, so I have a whole dedicated couple shelves just for these books, so that every time I'm going to pick up something else, I hopefully go and look there and pick one of those books. I can safely say that is going to be really challenging for me. I am someone that when it's on a set TBR for more than about a week, my brain loses interest in it, so it's going to be really tough for me to stick to this. And that has been evidenced by the fact that a couple days ago I needed to pick up a new book and I very nearly deviated from this list already. It was the first time I was picking a new book since making that list, and I almost didn't pick one off the list. But it's also quite good because I'm determined to give this a good go, that hopefully it should mean I do go to these, because I very nearly didn't a few days ago when picking a new book, because I was looking at them and I was like, I don't want a romance, I've just read a romance, but I want something easy because I'm kind of tired and I have a lot going on, and all of these look maybe more challenging, and I just said, no, just pick one and try it. And I did, and it was like, yeah, it's not that challenging, you're fine. Like, hopefully this will keep me on track, but we'll see. And with all of that, let's get into talking about the actual books. So there are 5 different categories that these books fall into, and I'm just going to explain them as we go. The first category of books I'm going to be talking about are my 12 books in 2024. At the beginning of the year, I basically looked at my shelves and found 12 books that I already owned, that I'd been meaning to get to, or was really keen to get to, that I knew were ones I was more likely to put off, or had been on the TBR for a long time, and made myself a list of 12 books I wanted to read this year. I went with 12, although I know a lot of people do like 24 in 2024 kind of thing, because for me and the volume I read, that'd be way too much. 12 felt manageable. A book a month a good challenge to have. And I started strong. The first 7 months of the year, I read 7 of the books. I kept up with one a month, and out of interest, those are The Transgender Issue by Sean Fay, A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams, Yes No by Esther Yee, Small Worlds by Caleb Azuma Nelson, Bellies by Nicola Dinnan, and The 13 and a Half Lives of Captain Blue Bear by Walter Moers. And as I said, was doing really well. First 7 months, we were 7 for 7. And then I definitely didn't get to any in August, and there's a few of these that are left, of the 5 that remain, that I've started at various times or have had on multiple TBRs and still not got to. So I am really going to need to push to get through the rest of these. The first is Fates and Furies by Lauren Groff. I don't know a huge amount about this book. I bought this in 2019 when I was in LA and was really excited for it. That was over 5 years ago now, which is ridiculous, hence why I'm like, I just really need to get to this, because it's survived many unhauls in that time. I'm excited to read it, and I think this follows this relationship that everyone believes is like the perfect relationship. They're married, they're happy, and then it all falls apart, and I think we see both sides of why that happened. It sounds great, I just need to read it. Next up we have Leave the World Behind by Ruman Alam. This is a dystopian, kind of speculative, I think, about kind of the end of the world. That's about all I know. This is one I saw Kayla, Books and Lala read many years ago and love, and it's been on my interest list ever since, and I'd borrowed my mum's copy. I've now replaced it with the US edition when I was in New York in spring, but I need to read it. This has been on my TBR, I think, for 4 different months this year, which is ridiculous because I've not actually touched it. Need to get to it. Another is Luster by Raven Lalani. This is a literary fiction book about a black woman, and I don't know much about it. Messy character, I think she's in her 20s and is dating a much older man, and I don't really know where it goes from there. I started this in May, I think, but I read it right at the end of the month and didn't finish it, and for June I only wanted to read queer books, so I put this down. It's now September. I have not touched it again. Part of me is wondering whether therefore I should DNF it, because if 45 pages in I had no interest in picking this back up, is it the book for me? I want to give it another chance before I make that decision, because I didn't put this down because I wasn't enjoying it, and I'm just bad at going back to things. I then have Seasonal Fears by Shauna Maguire. This is on this list because Middle Game, one of my favourite books. Read it when it came out, loved it. Reread it when this was coming out, so that I could read this, and then bought this and didn't read it. I want to say this came out in 2022, if not 2021. It was 2022, I'll take that. But nonetheless, the 3rd book in this series has just come out. I am not buying that until I've read book 2. I need to read it. I was nervous. Some people didn't love it as much as book 1. I need to goddamn read it. Now. And in a similar vein, A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. I read The Prayer of the Orange Tree. I loved it. I reread it around about when this was coming out. Even though this is a prequel, I wanted to get re-familiar with the world. I got an arc of this 6 months before it came out, and I believe this came out February last year, a year and a half ago. I need to read it. It is huge. It's a bit intimidating. I did start it the other day. I only read like 10 pages, but it took some of that intimidating factor out because it made me really excited. So that's good. But now I just actually need to commit the time to reading the other 850 pages. So that's the first category, the first 5 books I need to get to. There are quite frankly just no excuses for me not getting to those books. I have known all year those were ones I wanted to read. We're doing it. I think of all of these categories, that is the one I am determined to complete. And it's only 5 books. I can do 5 books. 2 of them are pretty short. The next category I'll speak about is currently a very small one, which is good, and that is Bestie's Book Club books. So myself and Christy have Bestie's Book Club. It is literally just we pick a book every month that we're each going to read. We don't buddy read them, we just read them within the month in theory and chat about them. It's just a fun thing we do. We more than anything use it as accountability to read books we've both been putting off or for books we're really excited about. And one of the ones we chose for February, I remind you, it's September, was The Hurricane Wars. This is a tough one for me because I was really excited for it. I'm not a big romantasy person. I don't always love them. I got this from Fairy Loot and it's gorgeous, and I kind of got on the hype as everyone was reading it and was like, yeah, we'll make it a Bestie's book club pick. It'll mean I'll actually get to it. Like, that's going to be great. And then Christy read it and didn't really like it. And then Becca read it and didn't really like it. And then it's a series, which I'm not sure I'm going to continue with. And I don't really love romantasy. And I just never quite got to it. And part of me is considering just not getting to it and deciding it's not the book for me and unhauling it. But I'm doing so well other than that. The 7 other books we have read, I've read within the month I was meant to. And for me, that is so rare to stick to something like that, that I don't want to get to the end of the year and only have one book I didn't do. So I'm going to try it. I will let myself DNF it if I'm not enjoying it, but it is safe to say I'm putting off even attempting to start it. I cannot begin to tell you what this is about. I don't know. I just need to start it at some point. But as I said, that list is short for now because that is the only one I've not done to date. There will be one per month for the rest of the year. I think we're pretty much agreed on what the September, October and November books are going to be. 2 of them are on this list, 1 isn't, but I should probably add it. And then I don't know what we're doing for December yet. So keep in mind, a book or so might be added to this whole big list I have, but I think Christy is also aware that I'm trying to get through certain books and is pretty happy to pick from this list where possible. The next category, the next goal, another pretty simple one, is non-fiction. I set myself the goal this year of reading 6 non-fiction books, which is 1 every 2 months. Very reasonable, not that many. And yet somehow I fell behind. Again, did well at the beginning of the year, the typical with goals, did really well, read 1 in the first 2 months, read 1 in the next 2 months. And then I did actually get to a 3rd one because I, in June, read a tiny little non-fiction. And for context, when I bought those tiny little non-fiction books, they're called Inklings, I said to myself, I'm not using those to complete this challenge. I still need to try and be reading decent non-fiction. But given the fact there's 4 months left and I still need to read 3 more, that may change. We will see, but I've only got 2 here because non-fiction is very much I'm gonna have to pick them up as I go and see what I'm in the mood for, but I have 2 books here which I'd be really, really keen to get to before the end of the year. The first is A Trans Man Walks into a Gay Bar by Harry Nicholas. I'm so excited for this. This is a memoir following Harry Nicholas, who is a trans man and is also gay. And I know of him because he's good friends with Lily Linden and they're one of my favourite authors. And Harry has appeared on a podcast, which is called Queer Joy, I'll link it down below, which is Lily's podcast, where they interview authors and other queer creatives about what brings them joy as a queer person. It's great. Highly recommend if you want some feel good, and a lot of the episodes are bookish conversations. This I really want to read. I owned this already and then knew he was on the podcast, and then I found out it is signed as well, and I just need to get to it. It's not that long. I really want to read it. It doesn't have an audiobook, which is sometimes how I get away with non-fiction, so I do just need to sit and get on with it. But this one, I'm going to be gutted if I get to the end of the year and haven't read. And then another one, funnily, is actually an Inkling, but this is one I was anticipating it coming out and really want to read, so I'm allowing it, and that is Queering the Greek Myths by Jean from Jean's Bookish Thoughts, who's a booktuber I'll link below. I really want to get to this. I was meant to get to it months ago and I didn't when it came out. I'm very excited. It is what it says on the tin. It's all about how Greek myths are inherently quite queer, and yes, need to get to it. What the 3rd one will be, I don't know. We'll see if I manage those 2 first. So the next and actually final goal I'm going to be talking about, though there is one further category, is series. I set myself the goal this year of finishing 3 series, and I've kind of only done 1. When I set this, I was very much meaning book series, not manga series. I have actually finished an additional 2 manga series, but that wasn't really my intent, so I'm not letting myself have it. I did read the first 3 books in the Red Rising series, but I'm claiming that as finishing a series because they are a standalone trilogy. There are now further books coming out. There's 4 more, and I do plan to continue, but I gave myself the win on that being a trilogy because when I first bought them, they were a trilogy, so I'm claiming it. You can argue I don't care. But I kind of need to do 2 more, and I've actually got 3 here. But they're ones I really should have got to. They're easy wins, and I need to do it. The first up is The Easiest Win, which is Hopeless by Elsie Silver. This is the 5th and final book in the Chestnut Spring series. This is a romance series. I know these books take me like 4 or 5 hours to read. They're so quick and so easy. There is no excuse for not reading this year. Literally zero. People don't like this one as much as the other 4 books. I don't care. Read it. Get to it. I just need to get the series done at this point. There's just no excuses. The next one I'm gonna hold up, please don't curse my name, is A Restless Truth and A Power Unbound by Freya Marske, which are books 2 and 3 in the, I'm forgetting what it's called, The Last Binding trilogy. I reread A Marvelous Light in January, ready to complete this series, and I started this in February, and I got 50 pages in. I'm still 50 pages in. I will be starting this again when I get to it, but I swear, if this carries over to next year, I'm gonna go mad. So I need to get these done. I love A Marvelous Light so much. I think I'm gonna love the rest of the series, and Freya Marske has another book coming out next year, which I'm really excited for. So I've sort of said to myself that unless I've finished these, I'm not allowed to pick up the new book. So hopefully that will entice me. It just needs to happen. There is no good reason at this point not to. And then the other series, which I just feel like would be a good one to get ticked off, is Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. I read Divine Rivals around about when it came out and really enjoyed it. I've not heard as much love for Ruthless Vows, but nonetheless I want to get to it. It feels like I've been putting this off for ages because I ordered Ruthless Vows in about January, I think, from Fairy Loot, but it didn't arrive until maybe a month or 2 ago, so I don't feel too bad about it. But considering I can reread this in a matter of hours and then probably do this in a couple days, there's kind of no reason to not get this series done. It's only 2 books. It would be another quick win. Obviously, if I do all of those, I'll have completed 4 series, so in theory, I don't have to do them all. But as I said, they're kind of easy wins, so I'd really like to get to them all if I could. The other books I have in the series category, even though not related to my goal of finishing a series this year, is actually the first 4 books in the Bone Season series, plus the 2 novellas in this series, which are The Pale Dreamer and The Dawn Chorus. Book 5 of this series comes out in February of next year now, so starting in October, I'll be reading 1 book a month, plus a novella if it fits in that time, along with Christy and Sabriel, and potentially Sandra as well, though we haven't checked in on whether she's doing it or not. So it'll be the Bone Season October, the Mime Order in November, the Song Rising in December, and then the Mask Falling actually in January. So this isn't a fully end of the year thing, but nonetheless, 3 of them will be this year. And I want to reread them so I can read book 5, just because I finished this series January 2022, I think. So it's been quite a while since I read book 4. So I really do want to refresh my memory. Plus, they've all been rewritten. Samantha Shannon has done edits on the entire series, and I think especially book 1 and 2 are quite heavily edited, so I want to have read the new versions to make sure I know all the canon events leading up to book 5. So it's not going to finish the series, it doesn't match a goal, but it's still a lot of reading, so it's going on the list. And then the final category I have, as I say, not directly related to a goal, is what I'm referring to as just anticipated. So these are books that I picked up at some point during the year. I think I hauled all of these this year. And at the time I picked them up, I was super excited about them, either because I just found out about them, or it's just come out, or it's getting hype, whatever it may be. Or it's one that at some point in the year caught my eye on my shelf and was like, I'm gonna read that next, and then didn't. So these aren't critical, but they're ones that like I'd really like to get to, because at some point within the year, I fully thought I would read them this year. So this is more hopeful than set. But nonetheless, I'd love to get to as many of these as possible. I'm gonna try and do pretty quick explanations of why I want to get to them, because it's not the smallest list. Firstly, we have The Ministry of Time by Killian Bradley. This is, I think, kind of slightly time travel-y, romance, weird, I don't really know. This got loads of hype, I got really excited, so many people have given this 5 stars. I bought it with the intention of reading it straight away. That was now months ago. I need to get to it. Next is Moonbound by Robin Sloan. Robin Sloan is one of my favourite authors, and this is his new book. So quite frankly, I should have read it the day I got my hands on it, and I didn't. So we're gonna get to it soon. I think this only came out maybe in August, potentially July. So I'm not super long past, but nonetheless, I just need to get to it before the end of the year. And this is fantasy, sci-fi, cozy, I don't really know, but honestly, all of his books are wacky and weird, and I have a great time. Next is one I'm less attached to, but would still like to get to, is The Bones Beneath My Skin by TJ Klune. This is one of the few TJ Klunes I haven't read, but I think I've actually read like less than half his books because he's written so many. But this is just a standalone that is being traditionally published next year in covers that match like the Harrison's Cerulean Sea and the Wolfsong covers in that kind of paper model vibe. So I would love to read this because I've owned it for a couple years to know if I want to get that copy when it comes out, pretty much. All I really know about this is it has a young girl who has weird powers. That's literally it, but it's TJ Klune and I kind of just trust that his brand of weird agrees with me, so want to give it a good go. Next is Threadneedle by Carrie Thomas. I've actually owned this for quite a long time, and I think one of the things that was putting me off reading it is I believed this was part of a series, but there didn't really seem to be any further books out. There was a novella, but no further full books. There is now a full book out, so I really want to pick this one up so I can pick that up whilst it's still out in hardcover. I also know Lauren from Fiction Tea over on Instagram, I'll link her below, loves this series. It's an urban fantasy, and there's not enough urban fantasy that I've read, so want to get to this. And I wanted to pick it up in June. I got this really strong urge, and then because it wasn't queer, I didn't. So I had strong plans to pick it up in July, and then didn't. And so again, it's just one that I really thought I was gonna get to, so I would love to actually follow through on that. Next is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. There is just no excuse not to read this. This is also going to be the September Besties pick, so it's got me covered. But I started this book in October 2022 when I was on holiday in Portugal, and I got to page 62. And then I think because I was on holiday, it wasn't necessarily agreeing with me. It was a bit too big brain energy for a holiday, so I put it down and never came back to it, and that is shameful. So this is happening because I cannot be in the middle of a book for over 2 years. I can't do it. Next up is The Woods All Black by Lee Mandello. This is a queer, trans, weird, speculative little novella set in historical Appalachia. Another one I picked up with the intent of reading it straight away 3 months ago and then didn't. Let's fix that. Next is Long Live by Sarah Rees Brennan. This is a romantasy story that is very shiny, and I got an arc of this from the publisher, which I'm really grateful for, and was so excited when I got it, and again, just haven't quite got around to it. This follows a main character who I think falls into the world potentially of like her favourite series, and then finds out that the king there like wants her dead or something, and then it turns into a romance. I don't know. I trust Sarah Rees Brennan. The way this was pitched, it made it sound amazing. It's an arc. It came out last month. I need to get to it. Next up is Lo-Fi by Liz Riggs. This is another one I started and didn't finish. I started when I was on holiday, seeing Taylor Swift in Europe, and didn't end up finishing it. Oops. I barely actually got any way in, but was enjoying it. Just, I came home and got super ill, so I needed something way easier, so I put this down and just haven't quite gone back to it. That wasn't long ago, but still. This basically follows a girl, a woman, who works in a nightclub with loads of musicians, and then I think there's like messy romance and all sorts. It's just a vibe I like and want to get to. And funnily, another book with a very similar vibe is The Arena of the Unwell by Liam Koneman. I read a little inkling non-fiction by Liam Koneman in June, and so then a month or so later when I discovered this existed, I got it straight away. And this is set in the UK, I think, super messy, queer characters. One is in a band, one isn't. I think it's just a big messy romance and I'm so here for it. Maybe not that fussed if I don't get to it this year, but again, would like to, because it's another one, when I bought it, I really anticipated reading it straight away, and I don't want that to go 2 years out and still have not read it. So let's try and do it now. We then have Love in the Big City by Sang Young Park, translated by Anton Her, and this I got in one of my vlogs I put up for June at the Aesop free queer library that they do every year, and this is the book I chose, and I'm really, really excited for it, and actually I'm currently reading it. I'm currently 80 odd pages in. So this is set in South Korea and follows, again, queer main character living life in the early 20s and potentially being a bit messy about it. Really good so far, excited to continue. I'm proud that I've started on this list. And then finally, another one that doesn't have to be this year, but I would like to, is Astral Season, Beastly Season. Can I remember what this is about? Actually, not even at all. I checked the blurb, I remember. So this is about some people that are like obsessed with I think it's Japanese pop, J-pop idol. And then that idol, I think, is reported for, what was the phrasing? Dismembering her boyfriend. And I basically think it's these two people trying to convince the police that she's not guilty, she couldn't do anything wrong. And I love stories about fandom and obsession, especially with dark twists. So again, Is it urgent I get to this year? No. Would I like to? Yes. That is all the books. That is all the plans. As I said, there are far, far too many. I do not think it is likely I will get to all of these. If we're being honest, the books that are for my 12 and 24, Bestie's book club, and finishing series and non-fiction, I'm really going to prioritise and then do what I can with that other list of anticipated reads. But basically my plans for the rest of the year are read as many of these books as I can. I'm sure there'll be mood reads. I'm sure there'll be variants from this list. I am expecting to bring back Dart Attack for October. I was going to do it this month, and then I realised, having only created this list about 10 minutes beforehand, that was the recipe for me to just instantly ignore this list and do something different. So thought I'd give myself 1 month to try and make some progress, and then hopefully I'll bring Dart Attack back to help me pick up some of these and maybe some others depending on what comes through. But that's the plan for the rest of the year. We've got 4 months, we've got a lot to read. Hopefully we won't haul too much, but I'm excited. Will I stick to it? Who knows? Do I ever stick to a TBR? But I'm gonna give it a good try. We'll see if for once I can actually stick to a goal I've made. It'd be very satisfying if I do. But anyway, that is it for this video. If you enjoyed, please leave a thumbs up, give it a like, comment down below what your reading goals for the rest of the year are, or what your reading goals were for the whole year and whether you've achieved them. Any books you really want to get to, let me know. Subscribe if you want to see more content from me. But that is it for this video, so bye, and I'll see you in the next one.